Hello and welcome to another Stamp with Amy K video out here on Facebook Live. I'm just checking to make sure that everything is set up the way that it should be. And while I'm doing that, hopefully, yep, it looks like I'm live and going. So just wanted to, hey Karen, how are you? Just wanted to show you real quickly how it is that I did the coloring. Good morning. Hey Robbie. How I did the coloring on this particular card that I had on my blog this morning. All of the details are out on my blog as far as the sizes and the paper cuts and all that sort of thing. What I wanted to focus on today was basically how I did the coloring part of this. So let's get started. First things first is I used the Celebration stamp set called Blossoming Basket for the image. And then I used, it's as a bundle, it's available as a bundle for free with an order of $100 or greater. And bundled with the stamp set is this awesome embossing folder. So this is the Basket Weave embossing folder. And Stampin' Up! Has told us that this embossing folder is going to be in the next annual catalog, so that's definitely a bonus. But you can earn it for free now along with this stamp set. But the stamp set will not be in the next catalog, so if you're interested in getting the stamp set, which is beautiful, very useful, and I love it, make sure that you get it before Celebration is over. Celebration runs to the end of March, so any orders that you place that are $50 or greater, you start to earn Celebration items. And this year Stampin' Up! Is doing it a little differently. They actually have a $100 tier, so if you have a $100 item or a $100 order, then you can earn some of the $100 items, which this is one of them, and then there's a Celebrate You Thinlits dies and a stamp set called Happy Wishes, so they've got some kind of bigger items for free this time around. I'm so glad that you love it, Karen, too. This is a fantastic stamp set, and I love the embossing folder. I was thrilled to see that it was going to carry over. So, all right, let's get going on the card. Again, this one I did as a Mother's Day card, and the details are on my blog today as far as how I did it and what stamp sets I used and things. I used the A Mother's Flair stamp set for this sentiment. But for our card today, I'm going to change it up just a little bit. I just switched out the sentiment, basically. The rest of it's all the same. So let me set that aside and we'll get going. I did some of this stuff ahead of time just so that you didn't have to sit and watch me emboss a piece of cardstock. This is just crumb cake cardstock cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 so that it's going to cover the entire front of a crumb cake card base. I'm using a little bit of snail on here. The green glue also works really well, but was just trying to do it for the sake of saving a little bit of time using snail today. So running a little bit of that around. If you are going to use snail for an embossed panel, I generally tend to put a little bit extra on, more than I normally would, just so that it sticks and stays, because the embossing sort of makes the paper curl up a little bit. So we're going to line this up and hopefully get it fairly straight and stick it down with the snail. So we've got the background of the card all done. Then I'm going to grab the piece of paper that I pre-stamped. Hopefully you can see it. I don't know how well in the lighting, and I know the lighting is always hard. So I stamped it in Versamark ink, put a little bit of white Stampin' Emboss powder on it, and then heat embossed it with just a standard issue heat tool. So let me get started on the coloring. I use a blender pen. Blender pens come in a 3-pack, and they are an awesome little tool. Something that they last for a long time. I've had my set for a couple of years. I did have an older set that I used initially when I first started stamping, and I was not happy with the results, so I thought blender pens were the most awful things ever. And then I realized the problem was that they were old and they were too dry, so they didn't color very well. So if you're having that issue with them, get a new set. You'll be amazed at the difference. So, but they do last for a long time, so they're not something that dries out quickly. All right, so first things first, on the basket part of it, I use crumb cake cardstock. To color with a blender pen, it's real easy. You just take your closed ink pad, squeeze it together a little bit in the center, and all you're doing is trying to transfer a little bit of the ink from the ink pad onto the actual lid. You don't want to dab your blender pen onto your actual ink pad, because it's got stuff in it that can sort of make your ink pad too watery and that sort of thing. So you want to definitely squeeze it together, pick it up from the lid rather than picking it up from the actual ink pad. So, all right. Oh, Karen says she didn't know that the blender pens dried up. They do. It takes a long time. It doesn't happen quickly at all, but you'll start to see, you'll know when it's time to replace them because you'll start coloring and it sort of looks all yucky and the paper gets pilly really quickly and just they don't work very well. That's when it's time to get a new set. So just pick up a little bit of the ink, and I just did, you know me in coloring, I am not a coloring expert, so I just did a speedy quick. Basically just got some color on it. Tried not to color on the flowers. That's the most difficult part with this set that I found. When you're doing white on white like this and you're getting blind and old like I am, it's hard to tell where the white ends and where to stop coloring. So, but for the first layer, I just basically got color on it, and I didn't necessarily worry so much about the shading. I just wanted to get a good base layer down. You may be wondering why I'm not using the Stampin' Blends, which I love. They're super easy to use. They actually are not designed to be used with embossed images. So when you do an embossed image like this, I wanted something a little softer, so I did the embossing rather than just stamping it in one of the regular inks. So if you use a blender pen or the Stampin' Blends with an embossed image, it actually can tear up the tips. And also, I've heard, but I haven't tried it because I know it's not good for them, that it actually kind of almost melts the embossing powder when you use it. So you definitely don't want to mix those two together. So that's why I'm using a blender pen for today. So once I got the base color on, I just sort of went through and added a little bit of random ink here and there in the areas that I wanted a little bit darker. Made sure that I got some up here underneath the flowers since I knew that was going to be a shaded area. But shading and all that sort of thing, like I said, I'm really not very good at this coloring business, so I just sort of put it on to where I think it looks good and then say, okay, done. Also did a little coloring on the handle with Crumb Cake. Blender pens do work really well for watercoloring. Hold on, I'm seeing some comments come in. Sorry, I was busy coloring and not paying attention to what you guys were saying. So Karen's saying maybe that's why some of hers don't work, and that probably is why they're not working very well. They're just too dried up. So Robbie's asking, can you use clear embossing powder? Sure, you could definitely do that. The only thing with clear is you might find that you will have to go back afterwards and wipe the embossed areas off, just because I'm not sure if I haven't tried it with clear. So if you lay color over the top of clear embossing, then you might end up with like ink that sort of colors the clear, if that makes sense. But that should wipe up if you just take a paper towel or a soft towel and dab it over the top, and you should be able to get the ink off anywhere that's embossed. But yeah, it should definitely work. So then to clean a blender pen, don't put it under water or anything like that. You just scribble it until it comes out clear on scrap paper. So super quick and easy. And then as you can see, I have one end that's very stained, and I usually tend to use those ends with my reds and oranges and colors that tend to stain a little bit more. And I try to keep one end that looks all pretty, and there's really no reason for it. I just like the way it looks. And I'm weird about that. So I've got Calypso Coral here. I'm going to do a little squeeze in the middle of that. Transfer a little more ink for the flowers. And then I'm going to start coloring the flowers. And again, I did the same thing with them where I didn't really do a really good job of, trying to get ink on perfectly for the first layer. I just sort of put the ink on, made sure that everything was covered in the color, and then went back and added a little bit more ink later as I was going along. So, while I'm coloring away, I guess this is a good time that I can chat with you a little bit about joining during celebration. I know that a couple of you are considering it, and would love to have you join the team with us and come on over and be a demonstrator. There are lots of bonus benefits of being a demonstrator. You get at least a 20% discount on all of your orders, or earn 20% commission if you want to run it as a business. So great time to join right now during celebration, just because Stampin' Up! Is offering 2 free stamp sets with your starter kit, in addition to what you normally get. So you pay $99 for your starter kit, and then you get to pick $125 worth of merchandise, and that merchandise is whatever you should choose. There is no requirement. It can be things from the clearance rack. It can be things from the occasions catalog or the annual catalog or whatever. So now is a great time to join us. So if you're thinking about it, definitely hop in and give it a try. Love to have you on the team. Drop me a note later if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer. Hey Jan, she's popping in and says they can be refilled with a mixture of glycerin and water if the nibs are in good condition. Good to know, but do you buy glycerin at a pharmacy? I guess I don't even know where you buy glycerin at and all that stuff. So because I'm generally a lazy stamper, I tend to just buy a new one. But but it is good to know that you can refill them. I didn't know that. So when you refill them, do you have to pull the tips out of them, do you know? Or how does that part work? I guess I'm not entirely sure. I have to see if Jan can give us a quick answer on how you refill them, because I've never tried it. I've done it with our regular Stampin' Right markers. I know you can refill those with the ink refills. Pull out the brush end tip of a regular marker, put a couple of drops down the barrel, and then you can refill a regular Stampin' Right marker. But anyway, so hopefully Jan will give us a quick answer, and if not, that's fine. I can go look it up later and see. Hey Linda, I see you just hopped on too. Sorry, hopefully I'm not missing too many comments, because it's a little hard for me to color and watch the comments at the same time, because like I said, I'm not a terribly neat colorer. Colorer, is that a word? So I need to pay a little bit of attention to what I'm doing, although probably not so much. So just going back in and adding a little bit of dark colors here and there. Oh, hey, thanks, Robbie. So I don't know, I wouldn't say it's excellent. It's fun. I like coloring this sort of thing where it's a quick image. All right, I think we're done with the Calypso Coral, so I'll scratch that off. Let's see. Anybody else? Oh, no, I think we're good. Hey, Robin, how are you? Sneaking on. I didn't see you jump in. So we've got a little bit of Daffodil Delight, and I'm going to use for the flower centers. Just picking it up again with my blender pen and coloring over the center of the flowers. You can do a little bit of blending with the blender pens, but they don't work nearly as well for blending a lot of, especially if you're coloring a bigger area, the Stampin' Blends work much better for that. So, and then the last color we're going to add on is a little Lemon Lime Twist. And just going to add that to the leaves. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to say before I got going that the kids are home from school today. There's some, I don't know, a teacher work day or something. So hopefully we won't hear any loud bangs or screams in the background, but you know, you never can tell with kids around what'll happen. The dog's out there with them, so we could have an entertaining show by the time we get done with this. But I don't know if everybody has school off or if it's some... Hi, Amy K from Erin and oh hey, oh you're going to Hobby Lobby. You're going to Hobby Lobby. What are you going to Hobby Lobby for, Miss Linda? Good heavens! So you got a whole online store you can shop in, lady. So anyway, so back to coloring a little bit here. All right. And I think that's everything. So there's a little bit, these little branches on here are already embossed in white, and there really isn't any way to add color to those, but I think we're pretty well done with the image. So like I said, using blender pens is pretty quick and easy, and something that I like doing with the embossed images. I think it just makes it, you know, gives it a nice soft look and pretty nice for Mother's Day and that sort of thing. So I'm going to go ahead with a little bit of snail, and again, you can use, oops, I guess it would be helpful if I got a snail that actually had some tape on it. And I'm going to put my watercolor paper on a little panel. And again, the cardstock cuts are all out of my blog today, so you can take a peek back there. Hopefully got it on there fairly straight. Stick that together. Lemon Lime Twist cardstock is what's underneath it here. And then I'm going to take as my normal, because I don't know, I have a hard time making things without some sort of linen thread or something, a little bit of bow on them, because, you know, especially when I'm making something pretty and girly. So I got a little bit of linen thread. The way I tie my bows with linen thread is, see what happens when I try to get stuff straight, is I go ahead and tie a knot first. And that kind of holds the thread in the place I want it to be on the card. And then I can start moving it around and sliding it side to side and messing around with actually tying the bow part. And I tend to make my loops big when I tie my bow just because I find it a little easier. I can always make them smaller by pulling on the ends. But if I try to make the little tiny bow to start with, then I always end up with a mess and end up retying it 15 times. So I think that looks pretty good. The strings are a little long. Oh, Karen says she's finally starting to like Lemon Lime Twist. I'm telling you, I'm glad that we converted you finally. We got a couple people in our stamp group that are not fans of Lemon Lime Twist, and we have been working forever. There's one in particular, and we give her such a hard time all the time about it. And that's the big joke, standing joke in our group is that, you know, there's one lady who can't stand Lemon Lime Twist. So we all always make cards with it and make sure that we tag her in it so that she can see it, and we're trying hard to convert her. One day we will. So adding a few Stampin' Dimensionals. I agree, Diane. Lemon Lime Twist, when I first looked at it, I was just feeling the same way, Robbie. I couldn't stand, I thought it was like, oh my gosh, what in the world am I ever going to do with that color? It's too bright, it's too whatever. And once I started using it and realizing how well it went with so many of the other colors that we have, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a good color. So, all right. Oh, of course, now look, trying to trim straight. So here we are, got the basket on the card base. I think I'm going to move this up just a hair because I'm going to put my sentiment on there. The sentiment on this one I changed a little bit. And I used, I used a mother's flare on the stamp, or on the image that on the card that I created today and posted on my blog. I switched it up a little bit and used one from Friendship's Sweetest Thoughts, and that's a stamp set from the Occasions catalog, and I switched it to the Beauty Blooms Where You Are, just because it's a little more general card. And again, I went ahead and pre-stamped this in Versamark ink and heat embossed it with a white embossing powder. And then I cut it out with the Petals and More, one of the Petals and More Thinlits dies. This is a great die set on its own just because this die, which is the one that I used to cut out the sentiment, fits around a lot of the sentiments that we have. And this border die is incredibly beautiful. These three you don't need, and actually this one too, there's no stamped image that go with them, so you can use those even without the stamp set. So it's a fantastic stamp set, or a die set. So if you don't have it, take a look at it. It actually coordinates with and is in a bundle with the Petal Palette stamp set, but you can definitely use it on its own too. All right, so for the sentiment, I just stuck a little dimensional under one side of it, a little bit of snail under the other. And again, I'm holding my breath and hoping I get it on here fairly straight first time around. So just added it on there. Okay. And then I used a couple of the rhinestones. We had the black rhinestones in the holiday catalog, and I was a little sad when those retired, but there is a quick way that you can do them yourself. Just take a black Sharpie marker and color them, and that's all there is to it. So if you want black rhinestones or any color Sharpie comes in, you can do that. The Stampin' Blends also work for them, but since we don't have a black Stampin' Blends marker, I had to make do with a black Sharpie. So just add in a couple of little rhinestones here and there on the card front. And then, oh, you know what? I don't want that one there though, because I'm going to stick the little tag on. I think I'm going to put that one here. All right, then the last thing that I did for the card front was I stamped the little tag from the Blossoming Basket stamp set, and you can see that one right here. Stamped it on watercolor paper, did the heat embossing with white Stampin' embossing powder, and colored it ahead of time with my Daffodil Delight and Calypso Coral Stampin' Blends, Calypso Coral ink pads and a blender pen, and then I'm going to use a little glue dot. And I'm going to stick that on here. And I kind of had a little boo-boo where I went out of the lines with when I was coloring the flower. So, ta-da, all covered. I can't even see it. So that is our card front. And, oh, thanks, Karen. I'm glad that you're liking the card. And thanks, Andrea and Robin. And like I said, I'm trying to keep up with the comments, but I can't always do that when I'm looking down at my project, trying not to make a mess of things. So a little bit of snail for the inside, and I guess I should have told you what I did on the inside of the card here too. I'll show you that in one second. I'd pre-stamped and colored this as well, since you saw the blender pen technique earlier. What I did on this card was just stamp the little butterfly images from the Blossoming Basket stamp set, and heat embossed them with white embossing powder and the heat tool and Versamark ink. Added a little bit of Calypso Coral and Daffodil Delight ink on them, and that's it for the inside of the card. So we are all done with that one. And the Mother's Day card that I had made earlier today, or I posted on my blog earlier today, I had used the A Mother's Flair stamp set for the sentiment inside, and then just stamped the little butterflies around it and colored those there. So that is all that I've got for you today. Just a couple of cards made with the Pretty Blossoming Basket stamp set bundle, which again is available for free with a $100 order from Stampin' Up! Through the end of March. And don't forget that this stamp set actually is going to go away at the end of March. The embossing folder is going to carry over to the next catalog, but the stamp set goes away. So if you're wanting the stamp set, which believe me you do, you definitely need to get your order in for $100 or greater before the end of March. So let me know if you have any questions. All the items that you can see here are available for purchase in my online store, so stop by my blog, stampwithamyk.com. In the upper right corner, there's a little link directly to my online store, and you can go head over there and pick up your items, get your $100 order in so you can earn this for free. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll hang out for a second on Facebook, and if not, I will see you all soon. And thanks for stopping by, and look forward to chatting again.